Okay, you need to listen to spirit. Where are you getting your advice from? People treat me like a stupid freeloader gypsy, and they have no idea what my credentials are, and they have no idea what I do all day long. They have no idea how many people I interact with and touch. But anyway, you need to be listening to spirit. If you have not discovered Trinity of Control, Vatican, Tower of London, Washington, D.C., then you don't understand what your education and your media and all of your politicians are submitting to. So you need to listen to spirit. Okay, what spirit are you going to listen to? Now, they could have given me this information when I was a child, really simple and basic. There is a spirit that is famous for rescuing people who were in slavery for 400 years. 400 years is a long time. America has not been a country for 400 years. That spirit is famous for rescuing a group of people, 3 to 12 million people at least, at conservative estimate, 3 to 12 million people got out of slavery without a war in that thing called the Exodus. Also, that same spirit is famous for bringing a supernatural visitor, a visitor that is far more powerful than ordinary human powers. A supernatural visitor that they call Christ or Messiah, but that word means something. It means the supernaturally empowered one. Charis means the one endowed with what you would call energy. And Moshiach means the anointed, the one who has something special power, special ability poured on. So it's a descriptive term that means an entity, a person who has supernaturally powers put on. So there is a spirit. We call that spirit the life-giving spirit, and we call that spirit the loving kindness spirit, because it's a wonderful thing to give life and all the pleasures of life to a brand new human being, even though this life is full of difficulties. Okay, so number one, you need to be listening to a pure and true spirit. Number two, the Bible. Now this is a big problem, but I can take you through it fast. Okay. There is only one human being in all history who seems to have, treat it just like a rumor. There's one human being who seems to have 200 to 300 predictions set into writings that all came true in their life. There's only one person who seems to have hundreds of predictive points set in writings, and these predictions are stretched across 1,000 years, written by 30 people that did not know each other. Now, these predictions are the predictions of an event. The event is not an earthquake. The event is not a volcanic eruption like Vesuvius and Pompeii. The event is not the rising up of a government like the Roman Empire. The event that's being predicted is one life, and it happens to be the life of a male human being. One of my favorite book titles that I haven't yet written is, If Jesus Came in a Male Human Form, is there something wrong with woman? And the answer is no. The men desperately need a perfect example to follow, because the men set the tone for the family, and the men on the final day are going to be judged more harshly. So if you have 2 children, and one children is a problem, and one child is disobedient, then you're going to have to spend more time with the disobedient child. I'm sure that you actually have an awareness of that reality if you are a parent. You know, the child that's really tight with your mind, that's very peaceable, and that is a team player, is a delight. And you can flow and interact with that child in a way that's very excellent and strong. But then, if another child is full of outbursts and obsessions, you actually have to expend more energy on that child. So therefore, the highest spirit has sent this empowered rescuer in a male human form, so that the men can see, hey, this guy has not used his penis to enjoy women, and he's very worried about the human family, and he lives for 3 years just traveling from town to town, person to person, touching as many as possible. And if you look at my life, you can perceive that that's what I do. For 40 years, I had a great time. Now, I'm not having a great time. I'm pushing myself very hard. And the sweet spirit is calling me. Because of my circumstances, he has put me on bicycles and buses in New Jersey. And I'm interacting with many people. So anyhow, all right, so why the Bible? All right, how did these predictions get set into these writings? Just do a Google search on predictions about Jesus. Just do a Google search. So somehow the Hebrew scriptures have been surrounded by a force field or an entity. And in retrospect, as people read the beautiful warnings and encouragements and prophetic utterances from God through humans, they pick up, oh my gosh, this is a little comment about the supernatural one that's going to come. And in retrospect, they look back and they say, oh, here are the predictions. And that's cool. That's amazing. That's cool. I should chop this up into smaller pieces, but we'll keep going. Okay, so now that's a fascinating thing that all those predictions came true in Jesus of Nazareth. But then the New Testament accounts of Jesus of Nazareth were written 30 to 80 years after he was gone. How could those accounts possibly be clear and trustworthy? Human beings don't have that good of a memory. Well, listen, I want to touch your mind with a piece of information that my educational system did not give to me, because the educational system is literally run by a greedy death cult that does not want the successful principles of Jesus of Nazareth and his now empowered followers. The corporate and money powers that run this world and are keeping people in slavery, those corporate powers do not want the truths of Jesus of Nazareth to be placed in your home and among your people. They do not want pure truth to be carried. Some people are carrying pure truth just by conscience, and that's what it says in Romans 2. Atheists who operate by pure conscience do things that God loves, and people who claim to love God, many of them, do not obey and pay attention to some of the detailed instructions. So if the ones who claim to love God are disobedient, and the ones that claim to deny God and stay away from God are obedient through conscience, how is God going to judge? God equals conscience. But then if you discover that there are supernatural powers that you can operate with, and you just don't want them, then you may be evaluated as a bad business person. So the New Testament, written 30 to 80 years after Jesus of Nazareth was gone. Now, think about this. I'm telling you, you need to listen to the friendly spirit, the life-giver spirit, the spirit of loving kindness. What if the same spirit who set all those predictions out in many, many people's writings, what if that same spirit came over the writers of the people that we call, the book that we call the New Testament? What if that same spirit literally gave pure and perfect, clear and clean accounts of Jesus of Nazareth, and the first peoples to receive his powers have carried the details of his instructions to ordinary humans, how to gather and stay honest and pure as what they call the Holy of Holies. There's no building anymore. There's just a circle of cheerful, child-hearted friends who love to just stay clean and do the best business and be willing to be hated because they're asking difficult questions about why are you exhibiting that behavior? Don't you realize that that behavior is half good and half bad? If you're just enjoying your pleasure and your pleasure doesn't have a purpose that's aligned with the future, you may be hurting someone by just doing empty pleasures. There are empty pleasures, and there are pleasures with a clear purpose for the future. So, what if the same spirit, the life-giving spirit, the spirit of loving kindness, also strangely and supernaturally allowed the writers of the Jesus accounts to flow with perfect descriptions of what he actually said, the one who can beat death, the resurrected one. And that spirit could also build in little faults and nuances so that when critical people are looking at the information and saying, oh, this isn't the same, and though this is a contradiction, they're not looking at the big picture of a supernatural visitor. They're not looking at the big picture of the spirit realm. They're not looking at the big picture of an actual benevolent spirit who loves every human child and every human soul, even if they have done great evil. They can still begin to walk in a peaceable way. So, then we go to two important points The Dead Sea Scrolls discovery. There's a lot of confusing thing out on the internet about the Dead Sea Scrolls because it's a hot topic and you can be deceived. But the purest information about the Dead Sea Scrolls is in the writings of Geza Vermes, the complete Dead Sea Scrolls in English. And in many other places. Messianic Prophecy and the Dead Sea Scrolls would be a good search. And then, oh my gosh, people say, hey, oh, well, the Bible's been altered by Constantine and by King James. Listen, blow that complaint out of the water. Number one, the New Testament went to India. Thomas, the former nasty bookie that was stealing money from his peoples, Matthew, the tax collector, Matthew, the bookie who wrote down, he was a guy who wrote down the activities of the people so that he could nab them right when they made money, right when they sold their goats. He would walk up and say, listen, you owe $500 to the Romans. Do you want us to take your goats or your daughters to sell them? If you don't pay up right now, we're going to take care of you and you're going to be in big trouble. That man made money for himself in the most creative and greedy way. That man was a creative thief that was preying on other people like a drug dealer, like a loan shark. So Matthew, the bookie, wrote stuff down, and he was good at taking notes, and he took notes on the whole Jesus program, and his writings were carried to India by Thomas the Doubter, who said, I don't believe that he's resurrected. Unless I touch his body, I won't believe. And Thomas the Doubter was given what he asked for when Jesus showed up and let Thomas the Doubter touch his body. So Thomas the Doubter took the accounts of Jesus written by Matthew, the criminal bookie, to India. India was never under the Roman Empire. Never. And there are unbroken lineages of the New Testament information that is in India. And it is amazing because it has been preserved and undistorted for ageless time. The Roman Empire cannot be accused of modifying the Koine Greek business language New Testament. It is pure. If you can learn how to read Greek words, you can read the actual words that were written down over 2,000 years ago by Matthew the bookie, the nasty criminal who turned good. Okay, so the Dead Sea Scrolls discovery, they found scrolls that are 250 years older than Jesus of Nazareth, and the predictions are all exactly the same. The whole set of writings is unchanged. And isn't it weird that the people are given back their book in 1947, and then they're given back their land in 1948. That's a little bit weird and wild and amazing. So, I don't call the Bible the Bible. The word Bible just means book. I call it the writings that hold the predictions, the supernatural writings. The supernatural writings that hold the predictions. Now, this is where we're going to dive into the information on how you and I are formed, both the pleasure and the flow. There's so much commentary on both the pleasures and the flow, and how people who are now surrounded by troubling spirits, we have had an invasion of the entire universe of troubling, lying spirits. So we are literally under the influence of spirits who love to see humans engaged in self-destructive behavior, and behavior that entices and hurts other humans. That's the reality. So the next thing in the series is going to be, do not awaken pleasure and arousal until it is time. And then what is the right time to awaken pleasure and arousal? No parent ever gave me pleasant, clear-minded instructions on how to handle my physiology and the pleasure. And if this is a bad, nasty topic that you don't want to talk about, then just go away. But I'm telling you, I got saved when I was 36 years old by a simple, wise, grandfatherly man that taught about being self-controlled for women and for men, being self-controlled in the area of the arousal and pleasure. And it even becomes a wonderful way of enjoying one another when it is the right time. When it is the right time, the right time. There is a right time and a wrong time and a wrong way of working the pleasure and the arousal. If you don't want to talk about that stuff, if you don't want to talk about anatomy, physiology, the beautiful human family, and how we are formed, if you don't want to talk about that stuff, then just go away. But I needed kind, pleasant, Mr. Rogers kind of explanations of all these various things when I was a littlest child. And even the sex education people say there is no earliest time, just flowing with comments and truth in your family in an open-hearted way at all times. No question is feared because you have the answers. If people don't have the answers, if people don't have a foundational description of what spirit they're listening to, then those people are not trustworthy. They're telling you to follow information, but then they're putting you under leadership that is actually not following the information and cannot describe it. This is why your friend, Grandpa Honesty Guy, is so extremely valuable, because I am a researcher. I love to research the details and then describe them in simple terms to anyone who is truly interested. For most of my life, I have been describing how to bang on a drum, how to fix an antique car or motorcycle, and how to be a friend when your people are going crazy. So, peace be with you. This is installment 1 of Listen to the Good Spirit.